Well, the former president, Muhammadu Buhari, was the one that pledged, and his government was the one that pledged that would reach net zero by 2060. That's what you were asking me about. And is it realistic? Well, it needs a lot of things to fall our way to be able to reach net zero. As you so rightly pointed out, Nigeria depends on fossil fuels. Completely depends on fossil fuels because the share of renewable energy in Nigeria's energy mix is minimal. So to be able to move in 2023 to 2060 to renewables completely, which is the decarbonization strategy of the energy transition plan. The energy transition plan that was decided in 2022 is the linchpin of this move away from fossil fuels to complete renewables by 2060, which is like to reach net zero carbon emissions. Is it realistic? On the surface of it, it is not, basically. That is my opinion. Because a central feature of the transition to complete renewables is, well, I think, and this is the opinion of many researchers, that there was kind of a rush to join the bandwagon for the net zero emissions. We can pledge to net zero emissions, but we should have a realistic timeline that would actually take into context the peculiarities of Nigeria. As you so rightly pointed out, we depend almost completely on fossil fuels. Not only the population of Nigeria dependent on fossil fuels, even our economy is dependent on fossil fuels. So by saying we're going to move by 2060 to complete renewables, we have to think of the implications on our economy, which is dependent on fossil fuels. And then if you take the energy transition plan, the energy transition plan focuses on 5 key sectors: power, oil and gas, cooking, industry, and transport. So let's take maybe just one section, one of these sectors. Let's take cooking. In the energy transition plan, the plan is to move by 2030 to have almost everybody using LPG for cooking. The 200 million people in Nigeria using LPG for cooking. So you can imagine the kind of infrastructure that has to be put in place between now and 2030, 7 years, so that the whole population of Nigeria, and including the rural areas, are using LPG, which is a fossil fuel. LPG is a fossil fuel. So by 2030, you need to start moving to renewables. And then you have 30 years to move completely from LPG to electrification, complete electrification. And I'm picking energy transition plan, Nigeria's energy transition, which is good because the energy transition plan is a linchpin of our NDCs, which is the nationally determined contributions. And since we've signed up to the Paris Agreement, we have to produce NDCs. But my take here is that at least whatever plan we make should not be that we're kowtowing to what the West wants. If the Western countries are moving to net zero by 2050, we should give ourselves a bit of leeway, 2080, maybe another 20 years, because it is going to take a lot of investment, a lot of infrastructural investment, a lot of money. And if you look at Nigeria's energy transition plan, they say that we need that was in 2022. I don't know if the figures have been changed now. In 2022, they said we need $1.9 trillion to make that transition to net zero by 2060. So it's a lot of money. And where is that money supposed to come from? Well, we would, I'm sure we expect investments from Western countries. We expect a lot of climate funding to come from Western countries. But it's famously difficult to access. So I think I'll just conclude by saying, yes, net zero is a brilliant target for the globe, for the world, but there's a lot of climate injustice. And I think the countries who are most responsible for the mess that we find ourselves in globally should take the heavy load of cutting emissions. And we should do it in such a way that we do not jeopardize our socioeconomic development.